Ahoy folks, Craig signing in for Pure Xbox to share with you our review of the Souls-like reimagining of a classic Disney tale, Lies of P. Before we get going, this review was written by Ford James for PureXbox.com, but turned into video by me. So let's get into it. From Software games, especially Bloodborne and the Dark Souls series, are typically hard as nails, punishing experiences set amidst gothic architecture with light horror elements and H.P. Lovecraft-inspired monstrosities for enemies. Non-FromSoft games in the genre often forego everything bar the difficulty, such as the Star Wars Jedi, Neo, and Remnant series. But Lies of P wears its inspiration on its sleeve much more clearly, which is to say that this could well pass for a Bloodborne mod at first glance, you know, if Bloodborne supported mods and was on Xbox and PC. This is because Lies of P is a much more nimble Souls-like than the Dark Souls series. Sure, there's one shield that you can unlock, but most of the combat consists of immaculately timed parries and dodges, striking when the opportune moment presents itself. It can be infuriating, as Souls-likes often are, when there's one enemy that you just simply cannot best. Like this stupid monster. I hate it. But Lies of P offers more alternative options to overcoming tough foes than most other games of this ilk. You will find a plethora of different weapons throughout Krat, the industrial city where Lies of P takes place, ranging from a fire-imbued dagger to a fireman's axe to a policeman's baton. Each weapon offers a slightly different style of play. You can, however, customize these further, because after you've beaten the lengthy prologue that acts as a kind of tutorial, you'll have access to Hotel Krat, which is essentially your base of operations, your refuge from the terrors outside.
I'm so happy to see you.
It is here that you'll find a number of different NPCs to chat with, buy things from, and utilize, all thanks to their talents. But you cannot pet the cat in Lies of P. One of these NPCs allows you to assemble new weapons, but most of the ones that you'll acquire throughout the game come in two parts, blade and handle. You can swap these around and find out what works best for you, because you can make these as ridiculous as you like, such as a dagger blade attached to the handle of an enormous pipe wrench, but it will have the low attack of the dagger combined with the long animation swing of a pipe wrench, which, you know, isn't ideal. Create weapons that play to the strength of your build, motivity, technique, or advance, which are the three stats weapons are weighted towards. As we've mentioned, Lies of P is a difficult game. It comes with the territory after all, but in the current review build, it's almost too difficult. Some of the boss fights in Lies of P verge on unfair, and it seems to be a common consensus after consulting with a few other folk that are also playing for review, that some of the bosses will have upwards of 6, 7, 8 relentless attacks, all with a millisecond precision required to block perfectly. Then a window of just a second or two to get in one of your own hits before it's back to being a punching bag. Not to mention just how easy it is to get stuck in a corner, unable to dodge your way out. It's a fine art to balance difficulty with being fair on the player, and Lies of P misses the mark with some, but not all, of its bosses. When you're not tearing your hair out against some of the toughest bosses in gaming, you'll have time to take in the stunning city of Krat and digest a much more coherent story than you'll usually find in a Souls-like. The game begins in an abandoned train car when a soft voice calls to a sleeping Pinocchio. Yes, you play as that Pinocchio, who arrives back in the city of Krat to find almost all other puppets have gone on a murderous rampage. However, since you're Geppetto's special puppet boy, you're immune to whatever is causing them to go berserk, and therefore, your task is to find your creator before getting to the bottom of what turned this once prosperous city into a living, waking nightmare. Krat is split into notable zones, each with different enemy types, and you'll start by exploring the streets before reaching the city hall, fighting against countless puppets, and then you'll make your way to Venini's factory, where puppets are created. After this comes some much more natural environments, complete with zombie-esque humans thanks to some form of infection. This area, complete with wooden shacks and dilapidated buildings to fight the non-zombie enemies in, is reminiscent of the village section in Resident Evil 4. After this comes some tight, twisting alleyways complete with a mixture of human enemies and some you've previously fought, thanks to this being the hideout of one of the warring gangs in Krat. The atmosphere throughout Krat is eerie, with so many jump scares from enemies leaping from windows or out from behind corners that the impact of them is lessened slightly. You quickly learn to check every single corner possible. But whether you are traipsing through the rainy streets or ascending the inner workings of a cathedral clock tower, you're constantly on edge from the distant groans and creaks of enemies, knowing there could be one in a few seconds, or if you're lucky, you may have some brief respite with no foes at all. Krat is full of secrets that give it a little extra charm, such as music records that you can find and play while you're tinkering with your weapons and items in the hotel. A lot of them are absolute bangers too, especially Feel, the first record you'll likely unlock. They have the additional bonus of increasing your humanity, which is a mechanic that solely affects the ending of the game. Of course, this wouldn't be a game based on Pinocchio without some lying involved, and you have the option of lying or telling the truth in various encounters.
Fourth law, a puppet cannot lie.
Oftentimes, lying is the correct thing to do. For example, early in the game, a weeping woman asks that you find and return her baby. When you do, you have two options: tell the truth or lie. The latter is clearly the response the woman would prefer to hear, so as a result, it will net you an aforementioned Feel record, and the woman is content. The more you lie, the more humanity you lose, which in turn could lead to a bad ending. So the moral of the story is that music is good for the soul, right? With regards to performance in the Series X version of the game, you have two graphical modes to play with: performance and quality. We've spent most of our time in the performance mode, where things are crisp, clear, and totally smooth. And we've also dabbled with quality, which has a little more detail at the cost of feeling a tad less reliable in terms of frame rate, which is no surprise really. There is also a high frame rate mode that can be enabled when you're on the game's quality setting, and if you have a 120Hz display, and this definitely feels better than the default quality offering. However, overall, we'd recommend leaving the game on performance, as the buttery smooth 60 FPS here does help in battles where super slick reactions make all the difference. This dystopian tale of Pinocchio does a lot to stand on its own 2 feet, but when you strip all of the set dressing away, it is simply a terrific love letter to Bloodborne. It is rough around the edges, with some balancing issues and environment clipping causing you to get stuck in corners too easily, but with enough persistence, skill, and perhaps luck, Lies of P is one of the best non-From Software Souls-likes out there. We managed to get to the end of the video without our noses growing, so I count that as a win. As always, thanks for watching. Be sure to check out purexbox.com for all the latest Xbox news, reviews, and updates, as well as subscribing to the channel here. All that's left to say is bye-bye for now. Cheerio!